Hello, welcome into a fresh edition of Chi Time. We're here on UK Health Radio, on Chi Time TV and on podcast. So thank you so much for being here. Chi Time is all about your vitality, your natural energy, how you can support yourself no matter what. When you go into this a respectful self relationship, like when you give yourself time and space to listen to the truth of you. And it is an absolute thrill and deep honor that on this episode of Chi Time, I'm really, really both excited and calm to introduce you to Susannah Darling-Khan from the School of Movement Medicine. And I'll just do a brief introduction to her here before I actually bring her on camera, or on mic indeed. Just to say that Susannah has taught movement as medicine internationally since 1989 and is acclaimed for her gentle strength, passionate integrity, humorous compassion, and she's a visionary of weaving scientific, psychotherapeutic and systemic ecological paradigms. Now, her original background is in anthropology and Gestalt psychotherapy, and she's the co-director of the online 21 Gratitudes Movement Medicine Study Hub and the School of Movement Medicine, alongside her dear husband, Yakov Darling-Khan, who has also been on Chi Time, but quite a few years ago now. And they are both the co-authors of the Movement Medicine book that's out on Hay House. But Susannah is a teacher, she's a dancer and a music maker, but she's also a trainee pony whisperer. And I really hope I get some time in this interview to talk to her about the horses that she so loves. Susannah is passionate about sharing the simple and life-transforming skills of embodied communication. And as she says, deep listening is the new hug. I so love that. And in recent years, she's been working for the King's Fund to support embodied awareness as a tool for self-empowerment and self-care with women leaders in the NHS as part of the Athena programme. But she studied in many contexts, including an 18-year apprenticeship with the founder of Five Rhythms, Gabrielle Roth. Oh my goodness, that was such an experience for you. Said Susannah is celebrated for her visionary weaving of scientific, psychotherapeutic and systemic ecological paradigms, together with creative, life-affirming power of the dance itself. And Susannah's medicine combines apparent opposites. She brings a steady ground of compassion, gentleness, humour, and well-boundaried safety, together with a fierce call to clarity and deep vision. Her magic is all about sensing what is acutely sensitive and following the trail towards what becomes possible. So let's welcome Susannah Darling-Khan into Chi Time.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy and honoured to be here in this oasis with CLARA and with you. And I'm, just as she says, I'm also feeling calm and relaxed. I feel actually a bit like at Christmas when you're just going to open that present, like, but you don't know what it is. And there's so much to share about this subject that's so pertinent, I think, to where we're at right now in this era, as we hopefully, touch wood, are coming through the pandemic, and how we reconnect with each other and stay connected with ourselves. And anyway, CLARA, I'm going to pass the baton back to you and let you lead our conversation.
Well, I tell you what, I think it's the chi that's going to lead it. But thank you so much, Susannah. Your eloquence is always so resonative, if there's such a word as that. But yeah, I feel that there's a calm and a measured quality to how you deliver what you do. But that doesn't stop you from being excited and being embouillant and wanting to play and all of that. So I just recognizing you there for this ability to dance between it all. So with
thank you.
You're welcome. So one of the things that I noticed when I spoke to Yakov back in the day was this connection with the shamanic principles and qigong practice, and often, referencing the yin and the yang, the up and the down, the light and the dark, and that obsession that humans have with the external, but really all the magic needs to go on internally first too, doesn't it? And this call to embodying oneself at this time is quite a thing. I mean, you and I have been doing this for a little while now, and so it's part of who we are. But when, embodiment being a word that's bandied around a lot, right? But what is it about embodiment practice that is so key and such, I'm going to say it beckons you in to a self-relationship that can also be scary. So why is it so important that we get in this embodiment piece now, Susannah?
Thank you. That's so amazing opening question for me. And I always think that this is how really good conversations begin, with a great question. That's a question that opens a really important door. So, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that our Western mindset has been conditioned over centuries, starting with the Descartesian split between mind and body, to think of the body as somehow less spiritual than the mind or the spirit. So we have this kind of split between the idea that heaven is up there and the earth is down here, and that's somehow lesser. And I know that's historical, but I think it's still in our culture, in our language, and in our pre-conscious settings for many of us. And if you just think about the time that we spend at school learning cognitively compared to learning physically, and even then with the physical stuff we might do, dance or athletics or gymnastics or whatever, we're still the focus is on performance rather than on feeling the body. So this big word, interoception, which actually was coined about 100 years ago, but has become really important in the last 10, 15 years, as neuroscience has really developed much more understanding of how we think with our whole beings, we experience with our whole beings, and what we call the body, heart, and the mind aren't nearly as distinct and separate in our brains and our nervous systems as had been thought. So when I let myself feel my actual physical sensate body from within, whether it's right now, try it out right now, try touch. And this is, I'm doing it myself, feeling, you might have to squirm around a bit to help yourself really feel the texture of your connection with the floor or the chair. Wriggle your feet around, find that sense of your paws, like an animal's paws meeting the ground.
Ooh, pausing in the pause, I like that.
Pause, exactly, yes. And seat. And feel what that does in you. It actually makes me feel even more alive, like a kind of lioness ready to do something.
It feels like I've landed in, I guess, because the places where we meet the earth, like because we're both sitting here at the moment, under our buttocks, back of the thighs, and also soles of the feet, we don't tend to give them much mind, do we? And yet when we do, boom, we're in. Somehow there's that magic landing.
Exactly that. And you know the prayer symbol with your two palms of your hands together? I often think of this is about bringing my spirit or my consciousness together with my sensate self, which means the physical experience of being in a body. And what that seems to really open is actually the heart. And the heart being the bridge between the spirit or the consciousness and the physical. And that's why you mentioned the word, it can be scary to come into the body, because most of us, if not all of us, have survived trauma in some way of some sort in our lives. And if not us, then almost certainly those in previous generations have passed some of that trauma story down. Just think of our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers in the First and the Second World War, let alone everything else, and then what they brought back with them to our families. I'm talking about obviously in in Europe, but not only Europe, that were affected by those wars and all the other wars and everything else. And the way that we have survived that is, as I understand it, a kind of numbing. And that actually takes us away from our body sensation. And it deprives us of a lot of the juice and the glory of being alive, being in a body, being able to relish the goodness, the juiciness of tasting life. But it allows us to operate, to function to an extent. So when we invite ourselves, as you say, you use that beautiful word landing, to land in the sensate body, we're inviting that numbness to unfurl itself, to dissolve, to dissipate. And that often leads to different emotions coming up. And if we don't know that that's okay and that's safe, I notice you're holding yourself.
Yeah, it's that. Well, it's that
Exactly.
feeling of like, I was just feeling you were saying that when you come into softening the numbness, it can be like a bit scary. Haven't done this. Who's holding me? I'm holding me. I'm holding me. I have compassion for my human condition here. It's okay. It's okay. I think that, yeah.
I notice as you say that, I'm breathing more fully, like, yes, and
Yes.
the ground is holding me. Oh, exactly. And you know that feeling when you've been to the dentist and if you've had a anesthetic injection, and as it starts to dissipate, you start feeling your cheek again, or your tongue, or your gum, or whatever. That sensation is something I've had quite often in my life as a embodied dancer, as a movement medicine dancer. Like, oh, the next bit of numbing is dissipating. And often what's there underneath that is grief or tears or some kind of strong feeling that's not attached to any story, but it's just part of that which got put in the freezer, metaphorically speaking, and is thawing out. And it's so important to take this gently, and the harvest of being more here is so important, because it allows us to have a ground from which to relate to life, from which to really embrace our own uniqueness and grow our true offering, which matters. I believe that every single person on earth right now has something important to contribute. It's a all hands on deck time. I think Matthew Fox said that, and I went, yes.
Oh, I'm going to add something.
Radical theologian.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to that, Susannah. I say all hands and hearts on deck. You know, it's because the heart guides us. But that was so beautiful as you were speaking through that. I could feel myself landing more and more and accepting my body. And I'm a qigong player. I've been playing like this for ages, and still I can get out of my body a bit. I can go elsewhere, and I can. It's like it's the remembering to come back in. You know, the spirit gets excited, wants to go and play off in the cosmos. It's like, but I'm currently incarnated here right now, and I have, as you say, gifts to bring through and offer the world.
God, you know, isn't it? As you say that, I'm going all goosey. Like there's something in me that's really recognizing. I feel like a harp. We're two harps kind of resonating with each other. Because what you're reminding me of there is, I recognize that too. Like, we've both been doing this for so long, and yet it's so strong, this disassociation from the sensate body. And during the beginning of the pandemic, I remember there were times when Yakov and I were both really aware of an energy of fear. And I think it was coursing through our whole society, a whole global network of humanity. Our species was like, what's going to happen? We don't know. We just don't know. And interestingly, I remember naming that. This is fear. I'm frightened. We're frightened. Oh, maybe we collectively are frightened. And I remember the feeling of actually coming back into my body as if I had been way off without even knowing it. And that's frightening. That is frightening, because it's when we're disconnected that we lose our empathy, and then we're capable of doing weird stuff and hurting ourselves and others in life, because we're not actually here. And it's the body that's empathic. Oh God, I know you want to say something, but I can
go for it.
But can I just say one bit more about that?
Yeah.
So when the scientists, and I can't remember their name, but I can find out, who did the first more recent bit about interoception that I heard about, they were looking at people that are more aware of their physical heartbeat, who can more accurately predict or beat out where their heart is beating, how fast and what rhythm. So that was the way they judged whether or not somebody was in touch with their body. And I know I can tell that when I'm sitting really quiet and still. I don't know if I could accurately do it right now, but anyway, that was their measure. So the people that had stronger accurate interoceptive awareness were more emotionally intelligent about themselves. So coming back again to the heart-body link, as you were saying, but also more empathic with others, more able to resonate with somebody else's feeling. So that was one bit. And then on the other side of the picture, people who are psychopathic or sociopathic, that means people that can hurt other people or animals or anything else without feeling it, have almost 100% of those people have almost zero interoceptive awareness. So that's a totally numb body. It's a body that has learned not to feel itself, almost certainly as a survival mechanism.
Wow.
And then are able to harm. So this points me back to the integral original nature of us as social animals, as naturally empathic, when we're all here.
Oh, Susannah Darling-Khan is with us here on Chi Time. Thank you. I went through a whole process there of listening to my heartbeat on the inside and feeling that the truth in your words about the importance of being embodied. You know, we have a body. We borrow this vehicle, this magnificent vehicle, for a little while, and it's to be celebrated the best you can. And one of the best ways of celebrating my body, certainly, and I know you do this too, is by dancing and playing music. And Susannah is such a great DJ. She plays incredible sounds on the tribal gatherings, on the 21 Gratitudes Hub, on the darlingkhan.com website. Oh, I probably said that wrong, but anyway, each leads to the other, don't they? And so I asked Susannah if she had some tracks, knowing that she's probably got about 150 top faves. Is that right? If not more.
Probably a lot more than that now.
Yeah. So I've asked her to choose a couple of tracks for us here. So could we play one of them now for listeners here on Chi Time on UK Health Radio? And which one is that, and why have you chosen it?
Let's start with Nubra. Okay. Because of what we've been talking about is very strong. Let's just give your body a chance to groove, to loosen up to this beautiful, beautiful set of beats here, and this groove that's recently come out. I'm loving this.
We will be back with Susannah Darling-Khan on Chi Time after this. Oh, yes, an inviting track for you to move your body however you feel. So even if you're sitting, you can still move your upper body, or just see how the expression comes through you, and we will see you on the other side.
take care of your body. No need to push. Make sure there's nothing you could trip over. And you don't need to push, but also let go. Do let go. Take care. Have a good groove.
So you're back on your Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, here on UK Health Radio and on Chi Time TV and on podcast with my guest here on this episode, Susannah Darling-Khan. And before those station messages, we heard this track from Nubra. What's it actually called, that track, Susannah? Do we know, or is it just called Nubra? That's Nubra.
The track is Nubra. I'm going to have to look up who it's by. It's
all right. No
it's
worries.
Really new one, but
yeah. And I hope you've all enjoyed that, because we've been kind of moving in our chairs here, just like the women that we are who love to move our bodies. And I was really getting that, Susannah, how moving your body for movement's sake, as opposed to moving your body because you want to do something. This is big.
Yeah.
It is.
It's by Liquid Bloom and PERE, PERE.
God, that even sounds as scrummy as it's. Those words are as scrummy as it sounds. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for finding that out. So before that track, we were talking about the importance and relevance of embodiment and how vital that is to be able to empathize with others, and also to be able to feel safe in our body so we can bring our gifts through to the world. Because as you so rightly said, we all have gifts at this time. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. And it's the weaving of one another's gifts. There's such a magic in the world right now, as we are dreaming in the new earth together. It's vital stuff. But there's something that you do which takes the embodiment piece one step further, or probably several steps further. So it takes it from the personal embodiment into the relational embodiment. And this, what do you call it? Deep listening is the new hug. This sort of embodiment practice with another or with others. Could you tell us some more about that, please, Susannah?
First of all, just want to say about dancing. And I think it's possible with embodiment practice to get a bit caught in kind of calming, downwards, ground, all that, which is very important. But as we were saying before, when we're thawing out, when we're unnumbing, a lot of energy, emotional energy, but also energy, physical energy is released. And unless you're a runner or something like that, many of us just don't move as much as our bodies need to, particularly when we're thawing the stuck bits. And dance is just designed for that. We're dancers. Human. If you're a human, you're a dancer. It's not about how you look. It's about how you feel inside and letting that out. And that's why music is such powerful medicine.
Yeah, I was just going to the other bit. Thank you. I was just going to say that's something that Yakov, your hubby and co-founder of the School of Movement Medicine, he was speaking about. He used to not think he was a dancer, and he has a whole story about the dancer within me found its way out, or worse to that extent, really. So it's letting that. It's not dancing to be looked at and dancing. It's dancing to allow the expression of your true nature to have a place, to do the movements, whether they're soft and flowing or whether they're really going for it. Your body has that. That's why you call it movement medicine, isn't it? Medicine.
Exactly. And it's a whole spectrum that each of us has inside. It's not just one color. As you said, it can be tender, it can be wild, it can be so much. And for that medicine to operate, we have to shift to the inside feeling rather than being concerned with the outside presentation. And it's really something, particularly in this age where people video each other dancing.
I know. Please don't do that.
We completely ban that in our spaces.
Don't do that.
It really, really, really is an oppressive thing for anyone that's at all shy, and that's most of us, particularly men. It's so tragic how few how many men stop themselves dancing because they're frightened of looking foolish or being laughed at. It's so sad.
It is.
And I just want to create space where we can all dance and be in our hearts and then listen to each other. And that's where we're going right now.
Well, we are. We've got a little tangent coming in, and that is of sound. Because as you were speaking that around being inhibited potentially around movement because of what someone might think of you, what about making sound as well, like sounding or songing or just letting your voice sound? And how many of us kind of feel, but I can't sing very well. It's like, you're talking, so you can certainly make sound. So that liberation of sounding, just letting whatever sounds want to come, I think that really helps with that expression of movement as well.
It does. And it's actually something that we found with the pandemic, with when we do our own ceremonies a week later, using the recording, of how free we are to make such a lot of noise because no one is listening. We're not worried about disturbing anyone. It's a great liberation, and singing together. Now this starts to come back to the listening thing, and that we're social beings, like elephants, like horses, like wolves, like whales, like dolphins. We are social mammals, and we thrive in community. We thrive, and community thrives when the individuals within that community thrive. And we have this kind of idea that there's individual or there's community, but actually real, true community supports its members to flourish as the individuals they are, and that supports community to thrive. And one of the big parts of that is listening to each other, which is grounded, of course, in listening to ourselves and bringing our whole beings to that. But I have found over and over again in my conversations with people, people I meet on the train, and somebody's mother and somebody else's little girl or whoever that I meet, that I wouldn't necessarily go, oh, this is a great being. But everybody has such a lot of wisdom and beauty and individuality inside if you ask a good question and then stop and listen. But the big thing that I've learned from the horses, and originally from the elephants, and from a guy called I'll have to come back to that. The guy who wrote the book The Elephant Whisperer, who took care of a group of traumatized elephants who were going to be shot because they had witnessed the rest of their herd being killed, and they were so angry and distraught that they would kill any human they met on sight. And this guy was rung up to say, you're our last hope, that these elephants might be able to find a place to live where they could live peacefully. And he went through this incredible story, this dance with particularly the matriarch, he called her Nana, of the group, who was so angry and protective of all the other elephants. And eventually she and he found a real heart connection. And then there was another step where he finally realized that she was saying to him, please acknowledge me. And he realized that he'd been watching her, but not acknowledging her presence. So he simply in that moment went, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Thank you, Nana. I see you. Or something like that. Very simple. And she immediately went, oh, and came back into a sense of peace and went on grazing. And he developed this thing, and what he says, and this changed my life when I read this in that book. He said, communication is not just about the sending. It's about letting the speaker know that their communication has been received. I think he uses the word has landed with you. And I realized how rarely that happens in normal conversation. It's happened a lot between us you and me, Clara, right now, which is, I think, part of the vigor of this conversation, is we keep acknowledging that not only have I heard you, but what you've said has touched me, and vice versa. So we're corroborating each other's potency, that, yeah, you just touched me, you just changed my energy, and vice versa. But that for me comes from the elephant whisperer. And then with my wild ponies, they're not wild now, but they were acutely sensitive Exmoors, wild-born Exmoor ponies. It's changed our world, me recognizing that when they tell me, oh, I'm a bit worried right now, I'm not sure what you're going to do with that brush, for example. And I go, I recognize your word. I don't want you to be frightened. And stop. And this is totally different than normal horsemanship, which is like, you've got to show them who's boss, and you've got to keep stroking them until they relax, and then you take it away. This is the other way around. I'm saying to you, the horse, that your feeling of being safe is my priority. And we have traveled so far together on the basis of that. And I'm still adjusting. The domination story with animals is so massive. And that's why Exmoors have a mythos about they're known as being incredibly stubborn. But that's only because they have a very strong survival instinct. And they are wild. They're not domesticated in their DNA. And they're basically saying, you can kill me, but you cannot force me. I am a free spirit, and I will if I choose to. And they want to cooperate, but in order for that to happen, I need to listen to them and show them that I'm respecting their feelings. And that's been a massive, it's every day I'm in my meditation school with I call them my mirror masters, because if I'm not right there listening to what is actually happening with them, rather than what I think should be happening, but actually being with them in my sensate body, with my heart, without a sense of where I think we should get to today, they are not interested. And I might as well, try to put a halter on a wild rhinoceros. It's that clear.
Wow. And the ramifications of that in human interactions as well. People don't like being forced to do things, but meet them in empathy and compassion, softening, acceptance. You're on the way.
Yeah, exactly. And acknowledge that you've heard them. It's just that. When I say, I think at the beginning you used the word landed. I feel more landed. Then I echoed that word back to you. And I don't know what that did in you, but I know when someone does that for me, yeah, it's like, she actually was listening. And there's something about somebody is there with me. And this opens the gateway to the polyvagal safety of connection. And what Stephen Porges, who discovered what he calls polyvagal theory, which is about how our parasympathetic nervous systems and sympathetic nervous systems work. He talks about the transformative power of feeling safe, which is more than being safe, as in lack of danger. It's about feeling safe, which is about, one part of that is about the social feeling of connectedness, which happens when we feel empathized with, when we feel that somebody is actually getting how and who we are in that moment. And then, God, even just talking about it, I can feel myself drop inside and my belly gets warmer, which is why I started this thing saying deep listening is the new hug. Because when Yakov and I were practicing embodied listening together for the course that I made, and we were recording ourselves doing these practices very, very strictly with the bells and the timing, we couldn't believe the warmth and the love and the sense of ease that opened between us. And we've been together 30 something years, and we have what I think is a very, very good relationship. But even then, it opened new vistas for us, which is a lot about feeling heard, actively feeling heard.
So beautiful. Thank you, Susannah. And if anyone listening or watching would like to find out more about what you do, and particularly with this embodied listening, where can they go?
If you go to 21gratitudes.com and then go to courses, and then you'll see a picture of an elephant and embodied listening. It's all there. And I've made this so that you can use it by yourself, and you can use it with a practice buddy, I call it. Okay. But you can do a lot also with yourself, which is about self-listening.
Yeah. So beautiful, so beautiful. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared, the wisdom that has been coming through you, streaming through you as we've been chatting. It's been an absolute pleasure to be in your presence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, CLARA.
So if you're still watching this, we're here on Chi Time TV, and I know that you have another track that you were thinking about that you'd be able to play on the radio, and then you thought, well, maybe there'd be another track that we could play underneath, a little process. And I thought, oh, a little process with Susannah Darling Khan. Whether or not we play the track underneath it on YouTube or on the podcast, but certainly I feel like it's been a co-creation here, that we've led you into a space of going, come on then, can I have an experience here with you now? Is that something that you'd be able to offer us here for 3 or 4 minutes?
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to.
Thank you.
Okay. So before we kick off into that, just want to frame it that what we're going to do involves some body movement to begin with, and then we'll come into a more still place. So please make sure that you take care of your body and any physical limits or injuries you have. As I said before, it's not about pushing, it's about listening. So I'm going to stand up, and you might want to do so too.
Okay.
Oh, I need to change my view. Yeah, okay. So just ease into your hips, if you will. Imagine your breath being like oil. And then give your spine a gentle stretch. Again, keep breathing. Let your face soften and your jaw. And give your legs a little wiggle. Pick up one foot, just move it about a bit. Yay. And your hands as you're doing. Yay. And then we're just going to have a very little shimmy with a little sound. It's going to be brief. I'll do it first, and then you can do it with me if you wish. Don't worry if it sounds strange. So we're going to shake out our bodies and our voices like this. And together, breathing in. Fantastic. Yay. And one more time, breathing in. Wonderful. Yeah. And then stretching. Gently easing into the side body. All right. And then coming back to sit. And then if you would, now we're going to start the music, if you would just bring your hands around your shoulders. You can close your eyes if you want. And really permit your body to breathe. Breathing through your nose if that's comfortable. You can breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, or both through your nose or through your mouth if you need to. And don't require the body to be still. You can move if that feels good. And just imagine that there might be part of yourself that's kind of hovering around in the ether, wondering if it's safe to come home into you. It's not anything else, it's not anybody else, it's not a spirit, it's just you. And maybe there's something that needs acknowledging in order for that part of you to be welcomed back. You know, I spoke earlier on about needing to acknowledge my fear to the beginning of the pandemic, to welcome more of myself back. So I'm going to ask you to experiment with trusting your intuition. This is just for you, with you. And if you will, just opening your arms as if you're greeting a long lost friend, welcoming yourself back, a bit more of yourself back. And if you would, say something like, I welcome more of me back home. And then scooping that part of yourself, embracing that part of yourself, bringing that in slowly, slowly. And as your arms close around your body, acknowledging to yourself in words and out loud, if you're in a context where it's safe to do so, appropriate to do so, what you're welcoming back in. Just trust that you know what this is. Feel your feet on the ground, your pelvis bones on the chair if you're sitting. And taking 3 breaths to really help that energy of you settle into you. And then finding 2, 3, or 4 words that seals that process, that acknowledges that process. Mine are, I am here.
You are indeed, yes.
CLARA.
And mine are trust, guidance, and be space.
Trust, guidance, and be space.
And as I was holding my arms, it was like I was welcoming more space in, like to let myself be spacious, but also take up the space that my body does, so I don't feel compressed. Like, oh, be in space.
Ooh, let me just check I've heard you correctly, because what I'm hearing there's is almost like two aspects of what space means. One of them about being spacious and having a sense of space, but the other actually filling, inhabiting your space without crumpling up smaller, but letting yourself expand in the space that is actually you. Is that correct?
Definitely. And I think it leads on from what we were speaking about earlier about landing, not just landing into my body and down into the earth, but landing and expanding into the whole of my being, which includes my energy layers as well as my physicality. And not feeling like I shouldn't be so big or something. Sorry, I don't like, it's that kind of, oh, keep yourself small. Why? Why do we do that?
I suspect this is a very common one for strong women, maybe for strong men as well, and everyone else, of course. But I mean, we're all such an incredible mixture of masculine and feminine. Gabrielle Roth was so ahead of her time with that. She was such a teacher about the mysterious mixture, the wonderful, unique, mysterious mixture of masculine and feminine that each one of us is. And that's what's fascinating about this. So, yeah. But the word crumple came up for me. It's like how we crumple ourselves by trying to fit into something.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to honor you and your well, I'll tell you what mine was. It was about, I'm so fucking sensitive and so fucking strong. Excuse my language, I shouldn't be swearing on the radio. I am so sensitive and I'm so strong.
Yeah.
And that combination, as I was welcoming that in, was like, I welcome the magnificence of my strength and sensitivity. Okay. And I feel that's somehow I want to offer that to you too. I honor, CLARA, the magnificence of your strength and size, your bigness and your exquisite sensitivity.
Susannah, you've gone and hit the nail on the head again. It's that, how can we be sensitive, tender, vulnerable, and powerful, strong, and fierce? How do we do that? We dance these opposites, we recognize them, we let them weave together. It's not one or the other, is it? How do we do this?
No, it's not. It's interesting that what you're bringing there. That is also another thing that my ponies have taught me. They are so awesomely strong, these wild ponies. They're literally, they live on Dartmoor. They are born on Exmoor. They've lived there for generations in the snow and the wind. And my biggest pony is called Kailash, after the untouchable Tibetan mountain, and because he was untouchable until he came here. And he still sometimes is when I'm not completely there. But he's big. He's 14 and a half hands, which is incredibly big for an Exmoor pony. And he's very, very powerful. And Yakov's mother at one point was watching me with him, and she said to me, you know, he loves you so much, and he's so sensitive. She was like, I can't believe how sensitive he is, and at the same time, how hugely powerful. He could smash me into smithereens like that. He doesn't, and he has never, ever threatened me, but that there is that power there. And she was also seeing this, like, how can one being be so strong and so sensitive? And I realized that that is part of our wildness as animals, that we, as wild animals, we are incredibly strong and we are incredibly sensitive, and they aren't actually even polarities. It's something to do with what we've done with that as humans, that we've seen them as opposites, but actually they're the strength is connected to the sensitivity, because then we're awake to know what to do.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course. Yeah. Susannah, could carry on chatting with you. I feel like we've just opened a pot of some really delicious, more delicious threads. Thank you for that. And you've been listening or watching. How has that been for you? Do drop us some comments. We'd love to continue this conversation with you. And if you're watching on YouTube, do remember to subscribe so that you can get notifications to what's coming up next. But also to stay in touch, because as we're saying, it's this conversation, this we are in relation with one another, and we pick up on bits and pieces from what one another says or feels, and it helps us to develop ourselves and our ability to be in community at this time. Yeah,
absolutely. Because what we need to do as a human species, I see, is really to do with how we interact, and we can only do it together. At the same time, the steps that each one of us is needing to take, we can only take alone, but it's to do with that individuality, communality, dance, that's where the magic is. So thank you for opening that for us, CLARA. I'd love to be in touch with this question of what touched you in this conversation. How did it touch you? How did it make you feel in your heart, in your body? And what you're going to do to follow that up if it was something you're magnetized towards.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to this on podcast, jump over to Clara Apollo's Chi Time on the YouTube, because that's where all the comments are, and you can see other people's comments there, and maybe Susannah and I can drop in and also comment as well. And thank you. Thank you to all of you for listening and watching. Thank you for being part of this embodiment process on Chi Time with Susannah Darling Khan. But most of all, thank you to Susannah for bringing through everything that's happened here in this session. And such a special moment for us to meet. I know I've been wanting to speak with you for ages, so it's been more than I could have wished. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, CLARA. I mean, what you're holding here, what you're anchoring in this role, what you're curating, what a feast for us all. Thank you.
You're welcome. So go well, my friends. Keep your chi up. Your energy is important, as indeed are you.
Keep your chi up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.